I just realized this, that I had a dream that we were practicing with Mr. Bizzio and you. And I just realized that.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And I think we were talking about acupuncture with it was because we just recently had a conversation with him.
Yeah, so it's like in your consciousness.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and he had a different demeanor and a different style, but like with Dr. Vizzio, very similar. Like he wasn't.
But how did it inform the
all right, couple things. Big thing is like not a business, it's a practice. Like Dr. Vizzio is Dr. Vizzio. He's a doctor of Chinese medicine, a world-renowned practitioner. But he wasn't at the time. At the time, like they were both going to acupuncture school.
Right.
But their paradigm, like they looked at everything through the lens of this is a professional practice, it's not a business. And there's a huge distinction.
Huge distinction.
Yeah. And that was very, very important to have experienced early on.
And then what about as it relates to the mat?
Well, it related directly to the mat. Like you're not transacting business. You are conducting martial arts instruction and subordinating all your decisions to the principles of the art, not to profit.
Right.
But
to do what?
To teach the art, to have the art be learned, really, not even to teach it, but you're presenting the art in a manner that it can be learned, and you're not. Yeah, this is a I don't know the actual Mandarin. I don't know the Chinese or the Taiwanese really, but Fu Shu Yun. She was in her late 70s when Dr. Vizzio had her in as a guest instructor for 2 years to teach Xingyi and Bagua on Bleecker Street.
Right.
And essentially what she said is martial arts cannot be bought, it cannot be taught, but it can be earned and it can be learned.
Right.
And it was a beautiful way to, we kind of like put that little rhyme together.
Yeah,
that's,
right.
Those aren't,
little
not,
mantra
not,
for yourself.
Yeah, that's not the Taiwanese, but it really rang true.
Yeah.
It rang true. Like, so it informed the whole thing. Like I don't believe I've ever deviated from that paradigm.
Yeah.
I don't believe I have.
Yeah, I have.
In what manner?
I think I had to like trip up a whole lot.
Okay. So but give me an example. Give me an example. Like when you say, all right, well, you how could you have deviated from it if that was not in fact the paradigm that you were introduced to? So you didn't necessarily deviate from a tenet that you were indoctrinated into.
I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the defining moment for me. In 1998, I had split with my then current business partner, and I was the first dojo I opened in 94. I lived in that dojo for 2 years. Mm-hmm. I was homeless. I didn't have any income. A lot of bad circumstances, other than me opening the dojo, which is a great circumstance, pushed me. Like I just was in a bad place in the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And so I lived in that dojo, and that dojo started to become popular. There were a good amount of students. We opened up a second school, and then my then partner and I split, and I was left with Avenue U, and it was brand new. It didn't have any students and no income. And so like I kind of found myself in this place where I felt like I was scrambling. Mm-hmm. And our mutual friend, this was for months, and our mutual friend through jiu-jitsu, George Cernak.
Yes, who introduced me to jiu-jitsu.
And George, he introduced me to you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He had said, I'm going up to see Thomas Clifford. You should meet him. And the moment that I walked into the school and I met you, and I was understanding what you were doing, I said, oh, this person actually feels the same way I do, even though I can't yet articulate it. Mm-hmm. I intuited it. But
I felt the same way. I mean, I really felt the same way that it would. And I felt that way about, truthfully, most of the guys. Not all of the guys, but most of the guys. Like I just think it's hard for someone to really, if you've dedicated yourself to serious training for any length of time, it says something.
Yeah.
Like there's a desire there that is hard for me to not recognize and acknowledge.
Yeah.
And there's people train much, much harder than I ever have.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's people who haven't trained as hard.
Yeah,
Every level.
But it's not even.
I don't mean the difficulty of the training, but I mean the way what martial arts means to you.
Yeah.
Based on what you've taken from it. And I mean that literally. Like, I took so much from my early training.
I feel the same way.
That I had a burning desire to give back.
Yep.
Like I felt almost like I robbed the bank. And the only way I can
you repay it.
Like I'm not turning myself in and I'm not giving it back.
Right.
I don't regret it.
Right.
I'm glad I robbed the bank.
Right.
But now I want to be a little philanthropic.
Yeah, it's a little Robin Hood-ish of
Yeah,
it?
Well, I mean sincerely, like I want to give it all away, and that's the challenge, because you can give it all away if you rob the bank.
Yeah,
but what
you can't give it all away, right?
Give it all away,
right?
And the more I try to give it all away, the more I amass, like the wealth.
Yeah,
the old. If I give you $1 and you give me $1, I have $1 and you have $1. Like doesn't make a difference. You have $1, I have $1, nothing's changed. But if I have an idea and you have an idea and we each give each other the idea, we now have 2 ideas each.
Right.
Like you didn't lose your idea for having given it to me. Right. And that was it became a magnificent obsession. You could say it became an addiction. But getting back to 1998, it was more like 90. I think it was 97, maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that we all. I mean, George.
Just circumstances had me, and that's why that was my confession. Like because I felt so vulnerable, and like I felt as though in those days I didn't have the connection. Oh, I need to rely on the principle of my training to get me through this time.
Yes.
So I felt as though, to some degree, I was scrambling because, there were bills, there was rent, there was all this stuff.
There's some external realities.
And they
that almost make you believe you're in business. Like there's these external realities.
That's what I'm getting at, pal. That's exactly what I'm saying.
It's very easy to trick yourself into
believing.
believing.
And that's why my confession, like, I wish that it wasn't like that. I wish I had. But my lesson from it was very powerful nonetheless. Like I happen to be the guy that has to put my foot in the hole. Yeah. And then the value of climbing out allows me to realize the lesson or the mistake or and I may put my foot in the same hole again, but over time it's sinking in.
Yeah.
I wanna like kind of get back to this, the tracking of how it informed you as an instructor, and then move into this area of like, how important is it for someone to find a teacher like that? Like,
there's all sorts of anecdotes, like, or, it's parables or, sayings and proverbial wisdom of, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, that sort of thing. And there's a lot of truth in all that.
Some truth,
yeah. I feel blessed and fortunate and, all these things. And had I not come across Ruben Prett at the time that I did, at that time in my life, like, where would my life be right now? I've wondered that, and but I'll say this, like, there's a myth that, like, it's really, really hard to find a good instructor. Like, there are really not many. There's a lot of great instructors.
Right.
There's a lot of,
I love that.
Yeah, there's a lot of
I love
great instructors. There's a lot. Like, there's to just take it to the outer limit. There's a lot of guys out there talking about how, I really wanted to do martial arts, but Bruce died in 73. And
for those young people who don't know who Bruce is, he's talking about Bruce Lee.
Yeah, and I know there's some guys that he taught, but I really, in other words, some people's standards are too high for their own good.
Right.
I want to join a gym. The gym I used to go to, it shut down. Listen, gravity's intact.
Right.
Like gravity is working quite well. Gravity's working well. 45-pound plates are 45-pound plates, whether they're covered in rubber or they're rusty. They're 45-pound
front
plates.
Kick is a front kick, right?
Yeah. Now, I like the environment, and I don't want to trivialize a lot of the details, but sometimes our standards are just too high for our own good.
Yeah.
So, if Master Pret were here right now, the other thing about the guy, and I believe this to be, and I've never met Sifu Vizzio. I've never met him. I've heard so much about him from you, but I've never met him. But I've heard so much about him from you and from others. So I don't know if he's self-deprecating to the degree that Ruben Pret was very, very self-deprecating. Just his style. I don't think it's right or wrong to be self-deprecating, but Ruben Pret was extremely self-deprecating. So if he were here right now, his humility would probably cause him to not accept any accolades, any compliments. He was really so obsessed with the correction of his own inadequacies, deficiencies, and flaws that he'd probably have a hard time accepting the pedestal upon which I placed him.
Yeah.
He likes his anonymity.
Well, that's his job, right? He should be that way.
Yeah. Well, I would, and again, I know that Sifu Vizzio was quite famous, champion. Champion. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. His kickboxing career was well decorated. Yes. No.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking about like all of the things that he's said to me over the years, and this. You bringing up Ruben Pret is making me reminisce a little bit, but go on, please.
But I would imagine that he could be much more in the limelight if that was his choosing. But it seems like he enjoys some degree of anonymity. Is that fair to say? I mean, is he like Ruben Pret accepted his responsibility to not like be a hermit in a cave and to make himself available for people who were seeking instruction.
Yeah.
But he was a little more reluctant to be in the limelight. And it looks like
Mr. Vizzio, I can't answer the question for him.
Yeah.
But like I can say to you that what I think is that Mr. Vizzio's like dignity insisted that he step out.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just, I think he wanted to make room for his students.
Yes.
And he knew that like, he knew, I think his brilliance was, one of his brilliances is that he knew the exact moment to step back.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had, I'm guessing, but from my vantage point, from where I stood, like he understood that this whatever career he had in kickboxing was going to go so far, and that as soon as it even sort of slightly slanted in a direction where he didn't keep his dignity, he was out.
Yeah, he knew it was time.
He knew it was time. But he said something very interesting to me. Is like, like when it's my time to go, he's like, I'm just going to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to put that on anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that. Like, he's like, yeah, I'm just going to go out in the forest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like,
you believe him.
I believe him for sure.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to go out in the forest and a bear's going to eat him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So here's another interesting observation. Like, here we are, like I'm not 11 anymore.
Right.
Like I'm 55 years old, but I'm sitting here and I'm like on eggshells because it makes me emotional. I will never be able to repay Ruben Pratt for what he's done for me and continues to do for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like just
that's what I'm saying. It still informs us, right?
Yeah, and we're both stammering over our words a bit because we want to be careful what we say. Like I don't want to do anything to dishonor,
Certainly.
and I'm trying to share. Like I want to help people get something out of these experiences.
Right.
But at the same time, I hear it in your voice too. Like you don't want to say the wrong thing. Yeah, you don't want to say the wrong thing.
and I've gotten heat in the past for saying anything from my seniors.
Sure.
And they're upset at me, but also like,
yeah, I feel an obligation.
Well,
the story has to be told. Yeah,
right.
It has to be told.
If they're keeping it a secret, like I want my instructor's legacy to go on.
Yeah. Yes.
Look.
Yeah. The point being though that like I paid him. I paid him.
No, you didn't.
We're all square. Like we're all square. I paid. My tuition, and I got what I got, and he got what he got.
I paid for it.
Yeah, and I owe him nothing. Like, and that's just insane.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah.
I want to kind of conclude, right? Because it's a beautiful conversation, in my opinion. Like I think my intention for the beginning of this conversation was that, like, how do students navigate these difficult experiences and kind of glean their lessons? I said the other day, like, I tell what I believe are profound experiences for me to the class. Mm-hmm. And I said, I didn't wait around for Mr. Miyazaki or Mr. Vizzio to profound me.
Sure.
They were saying things and I was applying it.
Yes.
And most of the times I applied it years later.
Yes.
Like it would ruminate and kind of percolate for years and years and years. And then I'd have these aha moments where I was like, oh, that's what he meant. Mm-hmm. And that's how it applies to my life right now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I said, like, if you're like expecting me to kind of, comment and profound you, it ain't going to happen. Mm-hmm. Like, and I said to the class, like, if you're waiting for me to levitate, okay, here it is. And I jumped up and down. Mm-hmm. Like you
that's
saw it. Like,
yeah,
like this is the best I can do.
Yeah, take a picture
when I'm up in the air, right? Yeah. So, like, I think it's a valuable skill for people from our student perspective, not just our teacher's perspective, from our student perspective, to go, how do we process this and keep going? And I'm going to give you one more story as it relates to Max Ginsberg, right? He's the 92-year-old legit. Like, I never throw around the word master except for when it's due. Master Pratt. Yes. Master Ginsberg, like these people they've earned that in far more than right?
We're using the word mastery reflective, the word master reflective of mastery.
Mastery.
Not like a position.
Right.
Or like, no, mastery.
Right.
Mastery.
Mastery.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Good, beautiful distinction.
Yes.
So, I've been working on this painting. And I took it home and made some adjustments to this painting, and I took it back to the studio for my lesson with Max. Mm-hmm. And my lesson with Max on Wednesdays is 8 hours long. It's 8 hours of like intense practice. And in the morning, I put my painting on the easel. Max comes over and goes, "What the hell is that?" Mm-hmm. And then ignores me for the 8 hours. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the 8 hours, I pay Max $400 for the lesson, right? And I think that, like, another person would have gone, F this guy.
Sure.
Sure. But I'm like left with, what do I do with this?
Yeah. Well,
I gotta And when I told you this story, right?
Yes.
You had said, like, I remember you saying, yeah, like, you got to put that frustration or that feeling or that energy into your own pursuit of mastery.
8 hours. Like, he says that in the beginning of an 8-hour lesson, and he creates a dynamic where the emotion gets driven to an extreme, and it either ends up on the canvas, or
it ends up in the toilet,
or it metastasizes in your body,
yeah.
and cells mutate and become malignant, and I mean, a lot of things could happen.
Yeah,
a lot of things could happen, but the correct use of that exchange
is not to run.
Yes, to express it artistically on the canvas for the next 7 hours and 55 minutes.
Yeah.
And then wonder why it's only $400.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
how can he
discount it so much?
Yeah. Yeah. How can you get that for 400 measly bucks?
Yeah, man. Like,
I think that's, and again, it's not that he can get away with it. He's not getting away with it. It's that's the most appropriate lesson he can provide.
What's wrong with you, man?
Yes.
Like, what's wrong with you?
Yes.
All right. Beautiful, beautiful, Tom. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Gentle Art Podcast. Please share, rate, and review. And if you have any questions or you'd like to reach out, please contact us at the GentleArtPodcast@gmail.com, or contact us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or thegentleartpodcast.com.